Hello, fight fans. We are live. Glad to have you all back. It's been a while since we've had some UFC. We're getting UFC on Saturday. Of course, that card it's taken a few lumps. First, it was the co-main event. Then it was the main event. We're going to get into that in a moment. We have a list of news that's happened in just the first 11 days in MMA, guys. It's absolutely unbelievable what's happened so far. I mean, if you wrote a movie like this, it would be unbelievable. People would be like, oh, this is unrealistic. This is not happening. What are you talking about? But it definitely sounds like a movie. Let's go to the chat real quick as people are coming in. We'll start the stories, but I want to wait until more people come in. What's up, Phil D. Rolls? Is going on a beer run? I'll be back. All right, well, this should be easy to re-watch. I'm going to run this kind of more as a more replay friendly so people can watch it later after the live event. I'll go through a subject. I'll take some comments and some questions right after that section, and then we'll go straight into the next section, which we have a lot to talk about. I have 12 stories that all of them are just about equally as important and as crazy as what's going on with Dana White. Jason Kagan, what's going on? Dana ain't going nowhere. That's what a lot of people were saying. And I'll give you my opinion on that here when we get to that story here in a few moments. Phil says probably not. Arcade Chaos, what's up, man? Yeah, I don't think he ain't untouchable. Everyone's touchable, and I've seen other people fired for less, so let's go. They want to pay everybody but a black man. Go figure. I hope Francis leaves in the UFC. That I give a hell about anymore. It's corrupt. The matchmaking doesn't make sense. What's up, King James? Francis turned down $8 million plus per fight, and it ain't got nothing to do with pigment. It's there's a lot going on there. Phil, hey, cheers, man. King James, what's going on? Frankie Trezo in the house. What's up, man? Phil says he should step down like yesterday. Now, the opinions on this go all over the place, and mine's kind of in the middle, and I'll clarify that after we go through exactly what I would say that I know going into this. We're going to start this off, though, paying tributes and respect to Victoria Lee again. Most of you know that Victoria Lee died at the end of last year, but it wasn't made public until this year, so I'm counting it as, this just whirlwind of news and sorrow, unfortunately, that started 2023 for the MMA world. And there's some more news on this today because her family has closed down their gym that they have been running since 2013. The cause of her death has still been not announced. I don't want to act like I know exactly what's going on, and I want to continue to be respectful to the family. But I will say that some have speculated based on the Instagram post from her sister and other things the family have said that it may have been suicide. It sounds, unfortunately, like posts that we've seen in the past when this has been the case. This is an article from thesun.com, and I'll just read this real quick, and not the whole thing, but we're going to go through it because this has been updated since her family's gym has been closed. It says Lee passed away on December 26, with her cause of death yet to be confirmed. Since the young star's tragic death, her family has reportedly closed their United MMA Hawaii gym in Waipahu. The gym's official Instagram page has changed its description to permanently closed. Combat Sports podcast host Todd Atkins, shout out to Todd Atkins, he's been on the show, good friend of mine, and he was, I don't know if he knows yet, I'll have to tell him, but I don't know if he was quoted here in the Sun. But it says, also tweeted that all members received emails from the gym stating all memberships will be canceled and students will no longer be billed moving forward. I didn't mean to sound so excited in such a horrible story. I was just excited to see a friend was quoted by a major media source here. Lee and her siblings all trained at the gym which her parents opened in 2013. Since debuting on the MMA scene, Lee was 3-0 after beating Sunisa Srizen, Luping Wang, and Victoria Souza. A few days before the scheduled opening of this gym, there was vandalism that caused postponement. Current 1 lightweight and 1 welterweight world champions are Lee's younger brother, Christian. She had a brother and a sister that have been fighting in ONE FC. On February 26, 2021, Victoria made her debut, and it was triumphant. The post on Instagram announcing the death of Lee was on January 7th. Victoria was the younger sister of Angela and Christian Lee, a ONE-affiliated mixed martial arts fighter. When the USA Amateur Pancration National Championships were held in 2011, Angela Lee took first place in her division. That's a while ago, guys. That's 11 years old. So when she was 11 years old... Oh, excuse me, this is Angela Lee. So I apologize for that. I had read the beginning of this article and I had forgotten that part of it. But it's just a sad situation. Anybody that was training at that gym, I know they understand what the family's going through. I mean, that is just secondary right now. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the Lee family. Just a horrible, horrible situation, guys. Billy, this is breaking news. Mike is about to take over the YouTube world. We got a super chat. Thank you, Billy Hughes. $10 super chat. And I hope he doesn't mind telling. I just got some great Christmas gifts from Billy. He just sent me some equipment that's really going to help move this channel to the next level. And I'll be using that in the next couple streams and stuff. I think it's really going to make this podcast first class. And I just want to thank you again, Billy. It's really generous donations to the channel. And I think it's going to improve the quality of this podcast for not just myself, but all of you that watch weekly. Phil says, damn, I can't imagine going through that as a parent. Don't want to. Exactly, man. I'm completely there with you. What's up, Josiah Perez? What's going on, man? Not to sound stupid, but... Oh, Strongboy1770. That's me. I'm Seattle Mike. Fights with Friends. I'm the host of this show. Hey, thanks for coming in, man. If it's your first time... We do a weekly podcast. We usually do a fight companion on Saturdays. We do most UFC events boxing, Bellator, PFL, BKFC, even some jiu-jitsu tournaments and things. And today, this is a special live show just because there's so many things that have gone on in the first 2 weeks of 2023. Not even 2 weeks, 11 days. That I've decided to do this special live stream and fill everybody in on what's been going on here. But thank you, Billy. Thanks for the cheese, buddy. The fight bonus $10 super chat. Appreciate you, my man. Mike comedian on YouTube. Very good people here. Thank you, Josiah Perez. Best community on YouTube, I'll tell you that, in my opinion. Most knowledgeable and kind. We've talked about quite a few controversial things on here, and somehow we all manage to stay friends and come back every week, for the most part. No, it really, pretty much 100%, to be honest. So, Victoria Lee, you were a great fighter, you were a great person, and you left us too early. We're going to get into the second story of the night, which is absolutely insane. I don't know if you guys know what's been going on in Brazil, but this story ties in with the Brazilian ex-president, a bunch of UFC fighters, and a revolution almost that's going on in Brazil right now, which not only could cancel the Brazilian UFC that's supposed to happen in about 10 days, but it's really making Brazil very unsafe right now. And Jose Aldo, former UFC veteran, former UFC and WEC champion, he's put himself right in the middle of this controversy. You commentate on King of the Streets. No, I am not on there. But thank you. I like it here. Perfect for a misfit like me, says Frankie. R.I.P., says Tex. Yes, definitely. All right. So next story, I wrote a script for this one. I don't write a script every week. I actually haven't in quite a long time. But there is just so much going on this week that I needed something to lean back on. So the Brazilian ex-president, guys, Jair Bolsonaro, he recently lost an election. It was so close they ended up having to go to a runoff. The second time through, he lost, and the country has erupted in controversy since then. I'm going to start out. The Brazilian ex-president is now living with Jose Aldo. He's living in his house. And let's talk about how we got to that point. Chaos erupted in Brazil's capital city just this last Sunday, guys, in scenes eerily reminiscent of the insurrection attempt at the U.S. Capitol building 2 years ago. That, according to MMA Junkie, I'm not trying to get political with anything Democrat, Republican, anything of what's happened in the United States here. I'm just saying a lot of people are comparing it to that. Brazilian supporters of former President Bolsonaro stormed 3 separate federal government buildings in Brasilia. The Congressional Building, the Supreme Court, and Planalto Presidential Palace. This is according to televised reports from Brazil. The throngs breached barriers set up by Brazil's military and gained access to the buildings in protest over Bolsonaro's loss to President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who returned to the job after his inauguration on January 1st. He defeated Bolsonaro in a runoff election in late October. Bolsonaro, who was president from 2019 through 2022, and was compared to Trump when he took office, refused to concede the election, and his supporters' rallying cry has been that he lost a rigged election. Just 2 days before Silva's inauguration, reportedly out of fear, once the president was officially installed, he'd be vulnerable to potential legal difficulties with multiple investigations unfolding stemming from his time in office, left the country. According to multiple reports, the former president is in Reunion, Florida, a part of Kissimmee near Orlando, and is staying in a vacation home owned by former UFC featherweight champion and all-time great Jose Aldo, who recently announced his retirement from MMA. Aldo, who is from Brazil, was one of many MMA fighters from the country who publicly supported Bolsonaro while he was in office. Darren Till, who was born in England but spent years living, training, and fighting in Brazil, he announced his support for Bolsonaro in 2017, well before the election that saw him take office. Paulo Costa is another UFC fighter who has been outspoken with his support for Bolsonaro, as have prominent fighters like Anderson Silva, Vanderlei Silva, Rafael dos Anjos, Royce Gracie, and Ronaldo Silva. The civil unrest in Brazil comes less than 2 weeks before the UFC's planned return to the country for UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro, which will be the first UFC card there since the last show before the 2020 pandemic. A UFC official told MMA Junkie on Sunday that there is no change planned right now, but it could become a factor in the next couple of days. So the riots and everything that's going on, or that happened on Sunday, was in Brasilia. Brasilia is about 700 miles from Rio de Janeiro. So there is still a possibility that that event could go on. I don't know, with everything going on, the support from all the UFC fighters and the mixed feelings that's going to be there. And I don't know exactly what the political climate is like in Rio de Janeiro. It's going to be just kind of like the United States. You know how in the United States, there's a different political climate, in each state that you go to. The political climate in Texas, as we all know, in Texas or Florida or something, is going to be different than in California or Washington or, some of the more liberal states. So it's premature to say that the event's being called off now, but I would be more surprised if it wasn't called off than if it was, because even if the UFC wants to go there, there's a good chance that, the Brazilian commissions and the city of Rio de Janeiro is just not going to want to deal with that right now. So let's go to the comments and see what you guys are saying here. Yeah, Brazil is crazy right now from what I've heard. Says Phil, Josiah Perez, I really wish I could bet here Texas because Mike and Billy are smart and would highly consider their opinion. What's up, Boxing MMA 365? Good to see you, my man. Phil says, this is nuts. I didn't know that. I'm just getting caught up with this in the last few days. So living with Aldo, that's crazy. So Aldo is not, as far as I know, in the house right now. He may or may not be, but it's not Jose Aldo's primary residence. It's his vacation home near Orlando, Florida, just to clarify. I don't know that makes a lot of difference, but apparently he was pretty close to the guy, and there was a lot of controversy because Jose Aldo's wife has been facing a litany of allegations that she took money that was reserved for, poverty-stricken people during COVID that she wasn't supposed to. And unfortunately, there's a couple other UFC fighters that are embroiled in that controversy. There's two sides to that story, and, what actually happened, we're still kind of awaiting, the word on that. But else I was actually going to say, sounds like America a couple years ago. It's definitely being compared to that. Although it's beloved in Brazil, Jair is in a safe place. He is definitely beloved, and I would think especially in Rio de Janeiro. Dana will likely move it to the Apex. That's what I would bet. I mean, I would just be so surprised, and from what I know, from what I see, and I'm going to say it right now, I feel it would be irresponsible to continue with this event in Brazil. Like I said, I would be more surprised if it still happens in Brazil than if they were to cancel it. Didn't know Brazil was rioting, says Josiah. Yeah, and our thoughts and prayers are with them that they get their country back together, and hopefully, hopefully it's not the whole country. Hopefully it's under control quickly. Don't think you'd have time to move event anywhere unless they start process by tomorrow. It's going to be tough. That's a good point, Bill, because, I mean, we're 10 days away. This event's supposed to be a week after Saturday, UFC 283, and I feel like it would probably be pretty easy to move it into the Apex. Even in that situation, I don't know what the passport situation is with some of the fighters on there getting into the United States to fight at the Apex. Because when they have these cards in other countries, they generally stack it with a lot of local fighters. So I imagine, it's going to be a lot of Brazilian fighters. I know that there was already some Brazilian fighters on there. I don't remember what the entire card is because we still have another UFC fight night coming up this next Saturday. I've been concentrating more on that. But, yeah, you're definitely right there, Billy. Frankie says, Aldo and Darren Till have luta lever roots. That really sucks for Glover. Winning the title in Brazil was a dream for him. I believe he's out, too. There is just so much going on right now that it is insane. I believe that Glover is out the last time I heard, and I think it's going to be Anthony Smith and John Mahal Hill. Can somebody look that up real quick? Because I have a lot of things going on my phone right now. But if somebody wants to look up the main event for UFC 283 and see if Glover Teixeira is officially out. Good point, Mike. Visa ability may be an issue. What's up, Wyatt? Says my thoughts exactly. Would moving it to Vegas this short notice create travel issues for some fighters? I would imagine it would just be complete chaos. And yeah, it's not going to be an easy situation no matter what they do. Adidas coming on stage to say, Wyatt is alive, praise the MMA gods. But hanging in there. Yes, all right. So, yeah, just a wild and crazy situation there. And speaking of UFC, like I was saying, I've been concentrating on UFC Vegas 67. So let's make that our next story because this is just coming up in 3 days. And this card has already had two major fights either fall out or change. So we all know Kelvin Gastelum is out. There's pictures of him online. A brutal mouth injury. He said he basically had to have his teeth stitched back into his mouth. Michael Bisping on his Believe You Me podcast speculated that it was probably injuries in training and kind of questioned why he was sparring so close to a match like this. He says that week is usually reserved just for making weight and kind of getting yourself mentally ready. He was really surprised that Kelvin would be sparring that far that close to the event. But the situation is what it is. Sean Strickland He's a gangster. No matter what you think about him for this, he's a gangster for stepping in on short notice, especially coming off of a 5-round fight and heading into another 5-round fight. That is insane. He's going to step up to face Nasruddin Imavov at UFC Vegas 67 this Saturday. ESPN's Brett Okamoto was the first to report the news of Strickland Imavov and Gastelum's withdrawal. According to UFC officials, Strickland and Imavov will fight 5 rounds at 205 pounds. So remember, the initial one was at middleweight, the initial fight, 185 pounds. Sean Strickland, he's fought as low as welterweight. So he seems like a pretty small light heavyweight. I don't know how much weight Imavov cuts, but there could be a size advantage there. I'm not sure how big Strickland gets either. But, of course, Strickland fought just a couple of weeks ago in the final UFC main event of 2022 in a loss to former title challenger Jared Cannonier. That was a split decision loss. A lot of people thought that Strickland won it. Probably could have went either way. But this will be the first time that either Strickland or Imavov have competed at 205 pounds. The card's co-main event, Jeff Neal and Shavkat Ramonazov, was recently removed and rescheduled for a later date. So, yeah, this is the second fight that we've lost on this card. It's still a good fight. I like the Kelvin fight better. Kelvin versus Imanov. I don't like the Strickland fight as much just because I don't feel like Strickland's fighting style is as exciting. But I'm still looking forward to it. So let's go to the comments and see what the crowd's saying about this. Nuka-Cola says here, but had to rewind for coming in late. All right, my man. And this will be up later as a DVR that people can watch. And I'm going to go and make sure and put chapters in this for people that are coming in later. And that's why I'm going through the entire story before I go to the comments. That way it's easier for everybody to watch. Shootbox still around, the club that produced Vanderlei Silva and Shogun. I believe it is, Strong Boy. I believe it is. I believe Vanderlei is a trainer there. I know he's training Luis Gustavo, who is a big fighter that's been over in Brave FC. He's also fought for Ryzen. And I think that's where they're training at. Hope it's all is well with you, Billy. Good, glad to see you in here, bro. Nice, I'm alive, so can't complain. PR says Dana White will never get fired. We live in a biased world. Money talks, and that'll be our next story when we get through this. Is the Dana White story. King James says Brazil has been in turmoil for months, and UFC isn't making backup plans for a while. Yeah, I did not realize how much turmoil they were in, King James, until this week. So any other information or any articles you can send me, you can send it to me live here, and because we'll just spitball, we'll just go through it and update it as we go. Just I haven't seen anything about Glover out, so I'm assuming it's still on. I hope so. Who's the genius who saw an opening and smashed Kelvin in the mouth in sparring less than a week before his fight? I would like to know that, Wyatt. I have no idea. But Billy says whoever it was, they landed a brutal shot to Kelvin's mouth from looks of the pictures. Yeah, they're brutal. Strickland been packing on the pizza, baby. Just seems like somebody was sparring angry with a guy that he needed to be protecting this close to a big main event spot. Nuka-Cola says chapters, yes please. No worries. King James, hard to believe Kelvin pulled out over a tooth. Must be worse than we know. Or was it a bunch of teeth, says Jim. It looks like it was a lot of teeth. Kelvin says he basically had to have his teeth sewed back into his mouth. If you just Google Kelvin James, not Kelvin James, I don't know why I came with that, because King James, Kelvin Gastelum, injury. You're going to see pictures of his mouth. I know he posted on social media. It's pretty horrific, man. Billy says, anyone see the Strickland video talking about why there's not many American MMA champs anymore, pointing out how tough guys were in the past and how the overseas fighters focus on fighting 24/7? No, I haven't, but I'll have to check it out. Thank you. King James, it was a big piece of his gums and multiple teeth, man. Also had staph on his face, says Wyatt. Holy jeez, I didn't know about the staph. I just looked at it and I knew it. It looked horrible. Nuka says Kelvin has health issues, nasty blisters on his face. Staph. Yeah, I seen the blisters and things. I didn't realize it was staph. He definitely should not be fighting then. I figured it had to be more than a tooth. And speaking of that, speaking of staph, everybody remembers when Kevin Lee fought with staph against Tony Ferguson. You could see it on his chest. Commissions have tried to rein that in since then, and they've actually said that they will penalize and fine fighters if they try to fight with staph. That is not acceptable. It's just it's a health risk that's too great to put on the other fighter, and I 100% agree. Nobody should be fighting with staph, in my opinion. Figured it had to be more than a tooth. Says King James. Frankie says if Strickland loses, it will be 3 or 4 in a row. They should put him versus Kevin Holland. They both have the crazy personality. They both keep losing. Yeah, it would be 3 in a row for Strickland. At least 3. Because, of course, he lost to the champion, right before he fought Adesanya. And then he just lost this split decision to Jared Cannonier. Kelvin looked like he has staph on his face. Yeah, it sounds like that's the case. Kelvin's been sucking on toes. I thought it was just a pimple. Yeah, I seen that. Looks like he was hit with a bat. Yeah, it's bad. Like Connor tweeted to Kelvin, wash your damn mats. Oh, of course he did. I didn't see that, but... Remember when Kevin Randleman had a full tennis ball, full-sized hole in his armpit from a horrific staph infection? I don't. Do you remember who he was fighting with that? Wyatt? I'll have to look that up later. That doesn't ring a bell, though. That's crazy. Staph is horrible. Anybody, guys, if you train in a jiu-jitsu gym or wrestling or just anywhere where, you're trading sweat with other dudes, or ladies, trading sweat with other ladies, go out there and get defense soap, guys. Go out there and get defense soap. Don't skip your shower. That's disgusting. You got to shower immediately, guys. And not just for you, but for everybody else that's in the gym. Luckily I never had staph. I think it probably helped that, we were gi judo and not no-gi. Our no-gi's days, which were like street self-defense, it was a lot of hypotheticals and not as much sparring and stuff and sweating. And luckily I never ended up with staph, but I definitely know quite a few people who did. King James says staph is no joke and goes way worse than skin blemish. Look what it did to Kevin Randleman. Yeah, you can die from staph. You can absolutely die from staph. But yeah, horrible situation here. I think enough people are in here. We're going to back up and let's talk about the Dana White situation. So I'm going to put this tweet up here on the screen. This was from excuse me, I can't read this, but this was a letter to CEO Area Emanuel calling for Dana White's removal. I'll go into more detail here. I wrote a script for this. Let me get to it. MMA Junkie, by the way, on their recent show also called for Dana to resign. I'm not sure I'm lock and step with them. I'll make my opinions on that more clear after I get through this article here. But on Monday, the California Legislative Women's Caucus posted online a letter addressed to Endeavor CEO Ariel Emanuel calling for the immediate removal of White as UFC president. To this point, Endeavor has remained silent about White's domestic violence incident that was caught on video. And a lot of people are starting to speak up about the silence. Ariel Helwani, of course, he ranted on it for about 33 minutes, just about that subject. I know that video was out there. Luke Thomas, he talked about how horrible it was. MMA Junkie actually called for Dana White to be temporarily removed and then to come back at a later time, but, a much later time in the future. But this political women's advocacy group, it's 18 state senators and 33 assembly women. And they made it clear in the letter just how troubling this is to them. They said, quote, "Your continued silence speaks volumes," the letter reads. "As you once wrote, silence and inaction are not an option. Every day that Mr. White's actions go unaccounted for, your silence becomes more piercing and troubling." In an interview with TMZ in coordination with the release of the disturbing video, White owned up to his actions and said there's no excuse for slapping his wife and pushing her down to the ground after she slapped him during an argument. Prior to his wife's slap, video shows White grabbing his wife by the wrist. White's words fell in line with his comments from a 2014 interview in which he stated, "There's one thing that you never bounce back from, and that's putting your hands on a woman." When he said that, it was after a football player had knocked his wife out in an elevator. It was a much more horrific scene. And I want to look at both sides of this, guys. First and foremost, as I've mentioned on here, I don't believe that there is really ever a reason to hit a woman. People came back at me in the comments and said, well, what if it's in self-defense? What if, you're in trouble or your family is in danger? Yeah, of course, that's a different situation. Generally, even in a situation like that, I don't think hitting is usually the best option. If somebody has a weapon, or to say a gun, a knife or something, to try to grab something else or just to escape the situation, or to grab them, don't try to grab somebody with a gun. I'm not saying grab somebody's gun. Please don't try to do that. But, might be a better option come that situation. Another thing, on the other side of it, I put out there, yes, I believe never a reason to hit a woman, even if she hits you first. But a lot of these people in the media are acting as if this is a similar situation as to where she didn't do anything. And I think that is also wrong. Because if he just walks up to her and slaps her, that's a totally different situation. And you know what? I'm all for it. For saying, hey, you know what, Dana White, get the hell out of here. We don't want you. But that is not what this situation is. I've watched this video several times. And let me say, it's very grainy. It's very bad. For those of you that have watched it, you know what I'm talking about. Dana's grabbing the wrist of his wife. Then she slaps. She caught him good. This was like a Nate Diaz slap. It was a really good slap. The slap on the other side, you can tell that it was not only reactionary by Dana White, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but it was not a hard slap, guys. It was more like, she hits him, boom, and his was kind of like a little, like that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying that's what I would have done in that situation, but they're drunk. It did seem like it was a reaction, so he may really not have even given it much thought. Like, he gets hit, this is a reaction, And by the time he realizes that his hand's moving to hit her and he pulls it back, it might not have even registered to him that that's what he wanted to do. I'm going to go back to a story from when I was a teenager, because this is how I can relate to this. I want to say I was about 15, 16 years old. And I really regretted this because the kid I smacked, I had a big crush on his sister. But this kid was annoying as hell. I went camping with a friend, and this is just one of these kids that he's just talking shit. Just constantly. And he says something to me, and I can't remember what it was he said. But it's all the teenagers in the back of this van, and all the adults are up front, and we're just about to our houses. And this kid's just going off, and he's just this annoying little punk. And I don't remember what it was he said, but I swear to you to this day that I smacked him, and I don't remember thinking about doing it. I don't remember thinking, hey, I'm going to smack this kid. Like, it was so impulsive that I really don't think I noticed that I was smacking him until I was bringing my hand back. Then I'm horrified. Because I didn't give a shit about this kid. I couldn't stand him. He deserved to be smacked, in my opinion. Let me put that out there. But the reason I was horrified was, for one, I knew his sister was probably not going to date me yet, and his sister was smoking hot. And, I lived next to her. I thought I had a pretty good chance with her. We were close, and we never really talked much after that. But the other situation was, well, I said, we're getting really close to home, and we got a bunch of adults in the front of the van, and I don't know what they're going to do to me. Because his parents were there. I don't know what they're going to do to me after I just smacked their son. Luckily, it didn't come to that. They didn't tell their parents or anybody else, at least until I was out of the van and home. And I never went anywhere with them after that. But I just give that example to say this was a time that I was out of control. I really don't remember thinking I was going to smack the kid or starting to move the hand. It was really like an impulsive thing. It really scared the shit out of me. I've never done anything like that to anybody since. I don't think I had done anything like that before that. But it was just a reaction, and I was not intoxicated like Dana White was. I would not remove Dana White from everything that I see. If he had just walked up to his wife and just smacked her to the ground, I think it was Simeon Rice. I could be wrong on that. But the NFL player that knocked his wife out. That guy needed to go to jail. What a piece of garbage. And like I said, I'm not excusing what Dana did, but it is not the same as a lot of these other situations. And I think that you cannot forgive the fact that his wife hit him first. So there's definitely some responsibility there. What should happen? What should happen to him? Well, first of all, what I would like to see happen is this stupid fight league canceled. This slap league on TBS. Let's start out with that. They canceled that to begin with. I know Robert's going to disagree with me because he wants to see the slap league. And I'm glad that we can disagree about something so vehemently and it doesn't affect our friendship. But I am not for the slap league whatsoever. For you guys that have not watched these things, these are two grown men that stand there, and one of them stands there. They can't move or anything. The other one just hits the other guy as hard as they can. Then if they're conscious, they hit the other one as hard as they can. You want to talk about brain damage? I mean, you're just taking unprotected shots until somebody's knocked out or you have a decision. In my opinion, it's retarded. But I respect the opinion of anybody else that believes differently. That's just my opinion. But let's go to the chat and see what your guys' opinion on this is. Wyatt says, I enjoyed the first episode of Dana's Slap League. Surprised they're doing these events in nightclubs. Kind of ruins the audio. Oh, I didn't realize that they'd already aired it. I knew that they had postponed it, but I didn't realize it had already aired. Huh. Ariel really went in on Dana. Yes, he did. Nuka-Cola says, Dana, you never come back from hitting a woman. PRDL Hughley straight up said if it was Dana Black, the media wouldn't stop talking about it. And someone would be in jail by now. Love the pun, and he is correct. Quite possibly. It depends on who it is. I think you look at how beloved or how respected an individual is. I think if the person that hit him is, some rapper that I don't even know the current rappers and stuff out there for the most part, guys. If it's Wiz Khalifa, that hit him, yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to throw him in jail. If it's Samuel L. Jackson or Denzel Washington that's so beloved, I don't know, guys. You got that cult of personality. I don't think it's always as easy as black and white. I think a lot of it comes down to how favorable we see someone. Remember Floyd Mayweather had a lot of domestic abuse situations, and eventually that kind of got swept under the rug. I mean, it was in the public, but he definitely bounced back from it. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars since. Phil says, no, there's not. Phil says, okay, if the lady has a knife or gun or something like that, maybe. But besides that, WTF. I agree, Phil. That's my opinion. Labyrinth UFC Breakdown, what's up? Says, but remember, women are equal. I'm going to go back to something my wife, who is a teacher, says to her students. That everyone is equal, but not the same. I think you'll understand that. PR says, correction, there's plenty of reasons to hit a woman. You just don't do it. Bill Burr. Oh, that's horrible and hilarious. Ariel has always been a gaslighter tabloid boy. Video looked more like Dana extended his arm and pie-faced her to block her swings. I wonder if he was trying to block her swings. You're right, because like I said, I watched it, and I'm not trying to minimize hitting women. You guys, I hope, are clear by now on how I feel about hitting women. But, I mean, she slapped the shit out of Dana. And, yeah, it was almost like a cupping. And I don't know if he was trying to block a slap, because if that was me and I was just trying to block a slap, that's the first thing I would come out and let everyone know. Because who wants to be known as somebody that hit their wife, especially on camera? I mean, unless you're a real piece of garbage, I don't think anybody. But yeah, that's an interesting opinion. PR says, James, hell nah. He straight smashed her face 3 times, bro. I didn't see extra shots. That's not what I seen, PR. I seen a very, very grainy video. And let me say, as far as the grainy videos in this casino, I would bet money that there are different cameras and there are different views of this, because I know this from being in security, from my time in loss prevention. There's the video that you want certain people to see, that's got really good quality, and then there's the video that the people that you may not want to see everything, and it's super grainy and super hard to see. A lot of these security videos that you see where like you can't hardly see anything, some of these places have a lot better cameras. That's the angle that they chose to show you. Looked like a 5-year-old boy trying to slap back at his sister. Maybe because they were both drunk as hell. Yeah, that could be Phil. Says, I'm not defending Dana. I'm against hitting a woman wholeheartedly. But I did hear Dana's Nom say that Dana's wife gave him a black eye on the honeymoon. Oh, wow, really? Yeah, I didn't know that. Dana just did a surprise mini event 20 minutes ago at Apex. Really? I've been waiting. See, he was late. He was late. I've been waiting. I scheduled this for noon because I knew there was so many things up in the air, and I knew a lot of these developing stories could change by the time we went on air. I was hoping that we might get some actual news while on air. So when we're through the stories, we'll go to that and see what's going on there. But PR says, speaking on Dana's slap being light, you do know that when the shark nibbles, it's a hell of a lot worse than a dog biting. Phil says, the way she did it, it's definitely not the first time. I had a wife like that. Thankfully, been done with that for 10 years. I never hit her, though. Always just left, walked away. Good for you, Phil. And yeah, and I will say that just to make it clear, I don't think it's okay for women to be hitting guys either. I don't think it's the same, but if there's a woman out there, don't hit your men. Don't hit your men. Don't provoke them. Don't... You know that it's faux pas for them to hit you back. You should not be hitting them either. Just don't hit people. It's not respectful. If you're not inside a ring or a cage, I mean, you're not children and you're not animals. Just don't hit each other. Billy says, are they waiting till after they resolve UFC Brazil and finish that event to decide on Dana White's future with the company, possibly? That could be, but I'm really curious what he's saying at this press conference now. Dana White defended himself, and she slapped him first. I don't get how people ignore that fact. Kanoda, that's what I was trying to say is, yeah, you can't ignore that fact that she slapped him first. It's not the same as him just walking up to her and slapping the shit out of her. And that's why I am not for his removal. I would cancel the slap league. I would not have him at the next UFC pay-per-view and the one after. And then I would not have him at all the fight night weeks before then. Usually that kind of 8-week span, 6 to 8 week span, kind of gives time for people to digest things and sometimes move on to the next thing. That's what they did with Joe Rogan when he had a lot of controversy, which seems like he's always in a lot of controversy, but when they really went after him with the COVID stuff and musicians were pulling their music off Spotify and things, I believe he missed 2 pay-per-views and then came back and everybody kind of came to their senses and, said, hey, this is Joe. We want him to be the announcer. Just to be clear, I don't think what Joe Rogan did... I don't think that it warranted him missing any pay-per-views, but that's just my opinion. Phil says, my ex used to spit in my face, smack me and all that stuff. It wasn't easy, but I always took the high ground. She was nuts. So nuts that I have custody of my daughter, that's not easy for a father. In New York, damn. That's horrible. I'm glad you're out of that situation, Phil, but I'm sorry you had to go through that. So I said, I don't think there's no repercussions for Dana, to be honest. So far, there hasn't been, and that's why a lot of people are starting to speak out, Josiah. Nuka says, because the best way is to walk away. He didn't, so now he gets whatever. And let me talk about the intoxication there for a moment. I know that people can act differently when they're intoxicated, when they're high on drugs or whatever. For me, that's never been an excuse. If somebody says, oh yeah, I did that, but I was drunk or I was high, you're still just as responsible, if not more so, for your actions. But because you were so irresponsible that you went and got inebriated to the point that you felt you weren't in control of yourself, and now we're supposed to let you off on that, to me, that's total BS. Billy says, and if Dana is out of UFC, does that mean end of Joe Rogan calling UFC pay-per-view? Because Rogan has said Dana is the reason he stayed with UFC. That's a good point, Billy. Ray Rice. Thank you, Josiah Perez. I didn't write that down. I figured I would remember his name, and then for some reason I was saying Simeon Rice, but I felt like I feel like that's not right. I feel like that was like a linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or something. Ray Rice. Thank you, Josiah. Story time with Mike. Today's episode: slapping the shit out of children. Oh, jeez, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have shared that. The Ray Rice he was the same age as me at the time, by the way, though. I think he might have actually been I think he was a year or two older than me, because I was the same age as his sister. Ray Rice comparison is beyond stupid. Agreed. And so does Wyatt. Where's Rob? We need our drunken charge. I don't know. I told him we were streaming. I texted him that I was streaming at 3 o'clock his time. Yeah, it's entertaining for about 5 minutes, says Phil. It's absolutely brain damaging, but it's entertaining. There's money in his entertainment. Slap League appeals to the Just Bleed fans. All they want to see is people getting knocked out. That's why slap leagues will be popular, because people go to sleep. A very difficult time picturing a slap fight going to decision. Yeah, it's if you want to just watch people go knock out, go watch, what is that hip-hop channel that has all the knockouts and shit? Go watch TMZ videos. Go watch old Jerry Springer episodes or something. If that's your thing. It's not my thing. I like to see skill fighters. Yes, I like to see knockout, but I like to see it in an arena where both fighters are defending themselves. That's just me. Brent says, thinking he's making a joke. Yeah, I've dated hitters, and you can't always walk away without getting beat from behind, says King James. I've had to restrain one just to position myself to run out the door. I can see that. I can see that, King James. While I say that I don't believe you should hit a woman, if you have to grab her hands to keep her from slapping you and you're not just, like squeezing her arms and trying to hurt her, I mean, that's beyond reasonable. And a slapling, how is it not a palm strike to the corner of the jaw? Snap. Kenneth says they didn't air it. He's saying Dana White was the first to compete in slap fight. What stops them from palm striking? Oh, now I get it. I don't always get why it's sarcasm. Usually I do. What stops them from palm striking? I'm not sure what the rules are. Slap fighting ain't my thing. Me either, Jim. Phil says, same here. I had to restrain and get away pretty much. Sometimes. Brent, glad someone got it. Yeah, I feel stupid after he had to explain it to me. The media nowadays, I haven't even heard him mention skin color unless it's a white person. Frankie says, I saw a trans woman try slap fighting one hit, and Zier was done, son. Damn, Dana's too important to UFC and ESPN to get rid of him. Yeah, I don't think they want to, and that's why they haven't done anything yet, but if they push hard enough, it'll be interesting what could happen. Stephen A. Smith talks crap about Kyrie and smoking weed, but he looked like he was about to cry talking about Dana. Dana's getting a pass, let's be honest. Yeah, if anybody was going to go hard on him, and I figured it'd be Stephen A. Smith. I'm not the biggest fan of that guy, though, for a lot of reasons. But the narrative says women are as powerful as men, but yeah, she got a massive slap on Dana. She didn't haymaker him. It was a girl slap, and Dana overreacted to it, says Josiah. I don't think I didn't want to. Oh, what's up? Robert Kerrigan's here. Have no fear, I'm here. Sorry, Mike, fell asleep. All right, well, this will be up, and I'm going to put chapters in it later so everybody that missed the beginning of it can go back and rewind through all the subjects. Brent says, I agree with that. Strongboy says, Canado, well, equal rights and equal lefts. Oh, my goodness. Cancel power slap. I agree, but I would have canceled it anyways. Second slap, he just slapped his wife. Dana will be fine. These women, Cowsoul. Cowsoul? What are you trying to say? I'm not sure. What's up, Greg Brimstone? You don't need to take abuse just to prove you're morally superior. I say if they can dish it out, they can take it. That's some people's opinion. Horrible way to think, bro, but that you. Is what it is. Still be watching UFC, whatever happens. Equal rights and equal lefts. That's a great one. I'm right here. Jim says, you blew it, Mike. She might have wanted to slap him herself. Oh, could have been. It could have been, man. But yeah, she did not talk to me after that. No worries, Robert. Jim, Ariel's been going after Dana. Hell yeah, he has. Cheers. I wonder if guys like Brett Okamoto and John Morgan will bring this up after at post-fight press. I really want to know, can somebody, if you can find it, apparently there's a press conference with Dana White at the Apex right now. If somebody has the time to kind of watch that in the corner or maybe get an idea of what's happening over there, I'd appreciate it and update us if there's anything developing. Feels all right, I'm out. Got to go smoke, bring some wood in the house. I'll see y'all good folks soon. Cheers. All right, thanks for being here, Phil. See you later, man. Dated a headbutter, but I was a bouncer in the 90s, so there is that. What's up, Jason Kagan, my man? Headbutts are horrible, man. All right, let's go into the next subject. Now that we got through the Dana thing, there's a lot to go through here, guys. And I tell you, I think every one of these stories is interesting. WWE has been rumored to have been sold to Saudi Arabia. Now, that has since been denied. Ariel Helwani put on a thing that this was, not official. And then I think the WWE officially denied it, but they're definitely in talks. So WWE stock fell on Wednesday after briefly spiking amid a report that Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, fund was buying the company. A person familiar with the matter told Yahoo Finance it hasn't sold itself to Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund or another entity. Early reports on Wednesday, most prominently from DAZN's Steve Muehlhausen, this is where I seen it first. Somebody had posted it on Facebook, and it was a DAZN article, asserted that a deal to PIF was imminent. Then the tweet was deleted. The sale process, which kicked off last week amid the return of Vince McMahon to the board and as executive chairman after a departure due to sexual misconduct allegations, remains ongoing, this person told Yahoo Finance. WWE has increasingly expanded into the Saudi market in recent years. Late Tuesday, co-CEO Stephanie McMahon, also Vince McMahon's daughter, resigned from her role. The sole CEO of the company is now Vince McMahon confidant Nick Khan. Now, I bring this up for a couple different reasons. I know some of you guys are into WWE and you watch it a lot more than me, so I thought you would find it interesting. But also, we've had a lot of boxing matches in these areas and MMA matches and stuff, and I don't know that I'm so hot on it just because of their lack of understanding of human rights and some of their laws and things. I am definitely live and let live kind of guy. I don't care if somebody's gay, trans, whatever you do in your bedroom or whatever. I definitely don't think that people should be being thrown in jail or killed over it, or doing drugs for that matter. The Griner situation where she was thrown in jail over marijuana or CBD or whatever it is. What people do in their own homes, as long as they're not hurting anybody else, I don't understand why the hell anyone else cares. Let's go to the comments here, though. Only video I seen showed Dana extending his arms in an attempt to block incoming swings. Where's this Dana swing multiple times coming from? I haven't seen this either, but it was a really grainy video. At presser, Dana just said he will not be fired. His punishment is he has to carry his shame with him forever. Thank you, Billy. I assumed he was probably going to address that. I heard Endeavor might buy WWE. Really, Robert? That would be interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Something I always liked that WWE does, though, is they involve their fighters or wrestlers, whatever you want to call them, in a lot of different movies and TV shows. And I mean, like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the biggest example, but of course, a lot of other wrestlers came out of the WWE and ended up having prominent acting careers. I'm always an advocate for making sure that fighters have somewhere to take that skill after they're done fighting, so they don't have to continue to fight after they want to. And just because, I mean, they don't get paid what I think they should get paid. They've bled for us. I just want to make sure that they have an opportunity. Wonder how much they would sell WWE for. Vinny probably looking for $5 billion. I'm curious too. I haven't seen any numbers on that. Billy says J.P. Morgan Chase is looking at WWE financials for potential buyers. Once review is over, sale was imminent. NBC Universal is still in to buy WWE, but Saudi Group has the most money. Don't sleep on Disney, ESPN to buy WWE either. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Josiah says, I watched a little bit of the interview, and Dana said himself, people should not be supporting him or making excuses for him. So there you go. All these men who would hit a woman, no excuses. I know Daniel Cormier came out and said that yesterday too, and he's like, yeah, why are people defending him? He seemed pretty upset about it. What's up, Gaucho? Hello. Sale was $3 to $6 billion. Damn. Endeavor and WWE makes sense. I mean, I could see a lot of it cross-promotion, and as much as, like I said, I'm not as big of a WWE guy. I would watch it a lot more, probably if there wasn't so much time in between matches where they have all these silly little skits and stuff that I'm not a fan of. These people are definitely skilled. I've really enjoyed when we've done a couple of the WrestleManias because I really enjoy watching Ronda Rousey compete. Brock Lesnar, I have seen quite a bit of wrestling because I used to watch it as a kid. Brock Lesnar is the best entertainer in a WWE ring that I've ever seen. I mean, it's amazingly entertaining. Figured it would be that, Billy. That's what protective husbands would say to protect free-swinging wives. I just say, bro. AEW owners Tony and Shad Khan could bid for WWE also. Do they have that kind of money, you think, Billy? That would probably make the most sense because then they would have basically no big competitors. They would be, the biggest boys on the block. I don't think Dana should be defended, but I don't think his old lady should be either. They're both in the wrong. Agreed, Greg. Labyrinth UFC breakdowns. I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying they shouldn't be putting their hands on each other. Absolutely agreed. All right, next story, guys, because we have a lot to go through, so I'm going to keep moving on. Jake Paul signing to PFL. Jake Paul is heading to MMA. These are all stories that happened in the first 11 days of January. So I know I briefly spoke about this, but I would like to get people's opinions. The social media star turned boxer now plans to take his talents to the cage as he announced he has signed with Professional Fighters League. Paul, 25, also said that he was becoming a co-founder of the new pay-per-view super fights division, where fighters will earn at least 50% split of revenue from events, because their first pay-per-view did so great, like 10,000 buys. Paul holds a 6-0 record inside the boxing ring, said that he plans to continue that aspect of his career, but that when he started in combat sports, his goal was always MMA. There is no time frame or date for Paul's debut in MMA. Paul recently defeated Anderson Silva via decision in his most recent outing as he continued to take on former MMA stars. Now he hopes he can get one more star to agree to a deal with a slight caveat. Paul said in a video announcing his signing that he has offered Nate Diaz a 2-fight deal, the first to take place in the boxing ring and 6 months later in MMA. Paul said, I've proven myself in and out of the boxing ring, and now I am going to do the same in MMA, and there's no limit to the positive impact I can make on the sport. Paul said in a statement, I plan to enter the PFL Smart Cage and once again show the world that anything is possible with hard work and dedication. Outside of the cage, equal fighter pay and advocating for female fighters has been my passion, and I am aligned with PFL to evolve the sport. I believe in the PFL, their mission, and what they have accomplished in a very short period of time. That is why I chose to partner with PFL exclusively, both as a fighter and as a business partner. As head of fighter advocacy, I will consistently promote PFL fighters and invite all top MMA fighters, both men and women, to join the PFL and get a payday like they've never had before. PFL co-founder Don Davis told ESPN that Paul is signing a multi-year, multi-fight deal. He said, quote, I think what's made Jake interesting to fans is that he works hard and he doesn't underestimate what it takes. He knows he's not ready for his MMA debut right now, but he's starting to train. I think it's going to be about 1 year from now, so early 2024, where you'll see him take on his first opponent. But the kind of opponents he is thinking of will shock the world in terms of their status and name brand. One stupid thing that I heard people saying that I wanted to dispel was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard is they mentioned that they want to see him fight Francis Ngannou. And I know that's a joke that people put out there that a lot of people should fight Francis Ngannou. But they were definitely being serious. And that's insane. That's insane to even think about. On the other hand, I do like that Jake is interesting in fighter pay, in the advocacy. He's only 25 years old. My position on him has evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years. I could not stand him to begin with because of the kind of YouTube videos that him and his brother did, and I felt like they were just punks. He has worked hard in the sport. I think he's gotten decent. I mean, he's not world championship level or anything, but from where he started, I think he's done a great job. And at just 25 years old, I have a hard time judging the kid a lot at this point. So here in the comments, what's up, New Britain Paulie? If this was Brian, Cashman manager of the Yankees, or Roger Goodell or any other sport figure, they'd be a big problem. It looks like Dana's going to get a pass. That's a good point, New Britain Paulie. Can you imagine if this was Roger Goodell, how much we would be hearing about this on ESPN and everywhere else? I think Jake Paul's first MMA match should be against fellow boxer Clarissa Shields. Oh, my God. Robert said, I will never buy PFL pay-per-view, never. Yeah, that was a horrible decision for them to go $49.99 for their pay-per-view. I didn't get it. I knew if I wasn't getting it, that it really wasn't selling. I heard less than 10,000 buys. So that could be 9,900 buys. That could be 500 buys, guys. Excuse me. That could be like just families of the fighters buying. Probably some guy from the local bar down the street. Says Josiah. Billy says Jake Paul will no doubt improve PFL pay-per-view buys. So we'll bring in increased money for fighters. Excuse me, guys. I got to get a little bit of water. Please don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Don't know how I forgot my water. Yeah, I agree though, Billy. He'll definitely help pay-per-view buys. From what I've heard, also, I have not heard any fighters complaining about the PFL. It seems like they treat their fighters really well, I have to say, and that they're very well compensated. From everything I've seen, they pay better than anyone. And Bellator pays pretty good unless you're on the prelims. Maybe Dana should take some time off and him and her see a marriage counselor, and then they both apologize to MMA fans. Maybe then he can move on. I think that's a good idea, Jim. I never thought after seeing the video and stuff that they should remove him or that he should resign. But some time off, I agree with. I wouldn't buy it either. I'd consider if Francis was there, though. Well, if Francis is there, that's a different story. Never understood why anyone paid for free fights. And we're going to get to Francis here in a moment and his signing. Or his free agency. Billy says, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, Super Bowl weekend 2024. Be the highest grossing MMA pay-per-view of all time. Francis' co-main event for PFL heavyweight title. Boom, book it. Great matchmaking, Billy. Can't disagree. Wants to fight Nate in boxing first. Yes. Also, Jake Paul bringing eyes in will also bring bigger names, MMA stars to PFL. So watch out. PFL may become a contender in MMA game finally. What's up, Chris Uchimbu? Good afternoon to you, my friend. How do they have that much money to throw around? I have no idea who's funding them, but I mean, they're spending money like it's water. Robert says, I think PFL runs out of money in less than 5 years with this new business model. Well, they've been paying money out the wazoo from the very beginning. So that's absolutely insane how much money they put out. Of course, the winner of each division every year gets $1 million. The runner-up gets $200,000. So that's millions of dollars right there every year. So I can see why they would want to do a pay-per-view to try to recoup that. I just don't think that the quality of fighters is there. It's just not there for me, not in this climate. Feel better about the Danish situation if he sent me $1 million. I don't disagree with that, Crazy. All right, next subject we got to talk about. Speaking of Bellator, we mentioned a moment ago. They're for sale, guys. At least according to Ariel Helwani, who said on the MMA Hour, there are whispers that, I'll just say that they're on the market. They're on the market. And what becomes of that? What is their future? Where are they going to end up? Can they get back on track? They've got the CBS show on February 4th. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, Bellator is currently owned by Viacom CBS, which airs the promotion on its Showtime cable channel. On February 4th of this year, we'll be doing a live fight companion for that one for sure. The promotion will get a push onto broadcast television with a big event on CBS that hopes to take advantage of a 1-week lull between NFL Conference Championship games and the Super Bowl. Bellator 290, which will feature a rematch between heavyweight champion Ryan Bader and aging legend Fedor Emelianenko, as the headlining attraction. What happens to Bellator will likely be decided after ratings and reactions from that pivotal February 4th card are revealed. Basically, if they're really that serious about selling, I feel like it's kind of their advertisement to potential buyers. Bellator has seen its viewership numbers crumble since moving from Spike TV / Paramount to Showtime, which makes sense, given Showtime is a premium cable channel versus Paramount, which was included in many basic cable packages in the United States. Sure, their numbers are going to go down, but MMA fans you all know we pay more to watch our sport than any other sports fans. So a lot of MMA fans, I am sure, got Showtime for Bellator. Like they're like, yeah, I'll pay the $9.99 a month, or whatever deal they ended up getting, because I know I'm going to get a lot of other movies and things too, and then I'm going to get my Bellator on top of it. So that's kind of a short one, but let's go to the comments here and see what everybody has to say. Billy says PFL just needs to get Conor next, and maybe Israel Adesanya or Usman. They would be all right there with Bellator, right behind UFC. Maybe they'll buy Bellator. Shoot, I don't know who would buy them. Do you guys have any idea who would buy Bellator or what would make the most sense? And it can't be the UFC. And I'll go over that real quickly. So the UFC is still in litigation with a lawsuit that they have a monopoly in North America. Now, I know they were close to a settlement. They may have even settled and I didn't notice, but basically they lost that and they were challenging it and trying to retry it. But the court said, yeah, you're enough of a leader that we consider you a monopoly. Now, how they're any different than the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball or hockey, I mean, that's a good question. I have no idea. But apparently courts, said that basically they were a monopoly. And this was years back, even before World Series of Fighting became PFL. So I don't know whatever happened with the retrying of that court case. But I don't expect that they would try to buy Bellator, because that's just going to make their naysayers' case that much stronger. I'll forgive Dana if he can stop Disney from fooking with my pay-per-view pricing. Yeah, $75 is ridiculous. Let's put our money together to buy Bellator. Let's make it happen, boy. Life-changing business decision. You got a lot richer friends than I do, Josiah. Remember they were paying Anthony Pettis $700,000 a fight. Madness. Yes, that's right. $80 a pay-per-view is BS. Didn't UFC pay-per-view increase again? Did it increase to 80? Yeah, I thought it increased from 70 to 75 or something. It might be 80 now. Jesus. Yeah, Josiah says 80. It would be cool to see Fedor get that strap one last time. Definitely. Vince McMahon should buy Bellator. He's like 80 years old. I think he's done with that, all that business. But that would be kind of funny. Sells WWE and then buys Bellator. That's hilarious. I gotta find some new favorite fighters. I'm old and all my guys are past prime and retired. Yeah, a lot of mine were too. And yeah, I've had to find new guys. And a lot of my favorite fighters are on the verge of retiring now, too. I don't feel like they're as good at building the personalities now. It's $80 next pay-per-view, Mike. Jesus. Yeah, that's too much. I used to always tell everybody not to pirate the pay-per-views. Now I'm like, pirate the pay-per-views. Bellator, PFL, and Eagle FC are all for sale. PFL is, too? I heard that Eagle was, which is amazing because Khabib only paid $1 million for Eagle. I don't know what he would get out of it. That's some other news to come out this year. Talk about a crazy year so far. Khabib announced that he's retiring from coaching, and he may not even be coaching Khamzat Chimaev in his next match. King James, my new favorite fighter is Cheeto. He might be mine too. I really like Cheeto Vera. I like Corey Sandhagen too. Speaking of which, those two are fighting each other coming up too, though. Eagle FC is up for sale. Interesting. So, if I would have heard that the Eagle FC was up for sale first, I would have said that Bellator was probably the likely buyer. But now, given that I hear Bellator's up for sale, I don't know. Greg says, haha, I've had to find new fighters to follow every 5 years for the last 25 years, right? Cheeto is the only young dude I favor. All right, guys. Moving along from that, talking about, we'll go over this one because we kind of talked about it a little bit. But real quickly, Francis Ngannou to the PFL? That is a legitimate question. The internet's been abuzz since Francis Ngannou was pictured sitting with his mom wearing a PFL shirt. I believe this was just about a week ago. He better hope that he hasn't signed with the PFL, because the UFC is going to have they're going to have a legal situation that favors them, because Francis, under contract, is unable to sign with anyone else until January 20th. That's the end of the UFC's contract. And even after that, they have what's called a 90-day cooling off period, where they have the right to negotiate with Francis or hear any other offers and try to match them. They do not have the matching clause, as far as I know, after the 90 days. So I don't think, like, say a PFL offered him $10 million or $50 million, whatever it is. I don't believe they could just say, oh, we're matching and now you have to come to the UFC, which is the case in a lot of contracts. But they will have 90 days to at least kind of see what other organizations are offering. And I have no idea where he'll go. I thought boxing was a lock, and then I start hearing the PFL thing. Who knows who's going to buy Bellator? Maybe somebody with a lot of money. Maybe Jeff Bezos goes out and buy Bellator. Amazon's been doing ONE FC, one on Amazon. What if they just said, you know what, instead of paying one all the time, why don't we just go and buy Bellator and put them on Prime? What if Netflix went out and bought Bellator? One of these other streaming services. I don't know. I always wanted to see MMA on HBO, because HBO Boxing After Dark, I thought, had the best production of any fight show I've ever seen. The UFC pay-per-views nowadays definitely rival it. They have really good production as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Sound like Khabib is going to focus on his family now. Yeah, I seen that, Billy. That's what I heard. What's up, Arcade Chaos? It's PFL. Feel like he did enough for sport to ride off into sunset. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he doesn't owe anybody anything. Yeah, I heard Khabib is stepping away from the sport entirely, coaching, training, everything. Well, if he wants to spend that time with his family and he has the opportunity, you know what? Good for him. I don't blame him. Another one here, real quick, going to, guys. Diego Sanchez is back in fighting, and he has a match in BKFC. He's making his debut at BKFC Knucklemania 3. So UFC veteran and former Ultimate Fighter Season 1 cast member has officially inked a deal to join the roster at BKFC, where he'll face boxing champion Austin Trout in the co-main event at the upcoming Knucklemania 3 card on February 17th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So it's in Diego's, in his backyard. He's from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that part looks good, but the fact that he's facing a boxing champion, and he was kind of a wrestling heavy fighter to begin with. Ooh. BKF officials just announced this matchup yesterday. I am excited about Knucklemania 3, by the way, and it's on a Friday, which is awesome because it's not going to compete with the UFC or any other major situations. But Sanchez has previously flirted with the idea of doing a bare-knuckle fight following his exodus from the UFC, but he ultimately signed a deal with Eagle FC instead. In his debut, Sanchez lost a close decision to Kevin Lee, but unfortunately, Eagle FC hasn't promoted any cards in the United States since. That event was in March of last year. Well, 2 years ago now, 2021. Now Sanchez will make the move into bare-knuckle competition with a marquee matchup on BKFC's biggest card of the year. Meanwhile, Trout will also be making his first appearance in BKFC after the multiple-time boxing champion signed a deal with the promotion in late 2022. Trout has faced a long list of boxing greats during his career, including Canelo Alvarez, Jermell Charlo, while holding a win over Miguel Cotto from a fight in 2012. Trout vs. Sanchez joins a growing lineup at BKFC Knucklemania 3, with the main event pitting two-division champion Lorenzo Hunt against Bellator veteran Mike Richman. I don't want to see Diego get hit in the head anymore, guys. He was saying some weird things as it was. I love Diego Sanchez. I'm not trying to insult him. But I just wish he didn't have to do this anymore. King James says Dana offered Francis $8+ million per fight if he re-signed before his last title defense. Francis is going to be disappointed when he realizes boxing won't pay that. I agree. It's going to be hard for him to match that anywhere. I feel Francis playing with fire, posting a picture of mom wearing PFL could lead to UFC seeing him. Yeah, they could just tell him, you know what? Go ahead and walk. Jose Aldo making boxing debut February 10th, I think. Oh, I had no idea about that. I wish he wouldn't bare-knuckle box. Me too. So when Volk defeats Islam, they'll say he was distracted by Khabib leaving. Could happen. A lot of people are counting Volkanovski out, which I think is insane. The dude used to walk around well over 200 pounds when he played rugby. Aldo is trying bare knuckle? No, I think he's doing actual, like regular boxing, right? I don't think those dudes get distracted. Says Chimu. Greg's, unfortunately, I think Diego gets picked apart against a technical boxer. His style is too aggressive and wild. Yeah, I'm really sad that he's facing a guy that's a professional boxing champion. I wish Sanchez would chill, says Josiah. Agreed. Boxing MMA says Austin Trout, he really shouldn't be in the ring with Sanchez. Yeah. Josiah says Wilder has 2 money fights in boxing, in my opinion. Oh, he's signed for a fight with Andy Ruiz, and I am super excited about that fight. Diego got no business against a professional boxer. Absolutely agreed, King James. 20 up in the chat. Don't forget to hit that like button, guys. And don't forget, if you missed any portion of this, I'm going to go back and put chapters in for each subject. The ones that I just talked about for like a minute or two, I may not, but the major ones, like the Dana thing, like the Jose Aldo and the Brazilian president living in his house, I'll definitely put a chapter on that. Next up, AJ McKee. So Bellator just signed a big free agent. It's somebody they already had. I was looking at it expecting that AJ McKee was really going to test the free market, and I'm sure he had some offers. If you guys don't know who AJ McKee is, I think most of you guys do because you're the hardcores. But, I mean, this guy might be the best featherweight on the planet. He knocked out Patricio Pitbull in their first fight. I thought he won the second, so essentially undefeated. Recently on New Year's Eve, he went over to Ryzen and schooled their champion. I mean, and that was at lightweight, but he is really, really good. But he's also made it very clear that, yes, he wants to be the best fighter in the world, but the most important thing to him is being the richest fighter in the world. And this is prize fighting. I do not blame him. I don't blame him at all. So This in an article from Tristan Crutchfield of Sherdog. AJ McKee is going to remain a Bellator MMA athlete for the foreseeable future. The California-based promotion on Tuesday announced that it has re-signed the former featherweight champion to an exclusive multi-fight contract. Terms of the deal were not yet disclosed. In a release, Bellator President Scott Coker also indicated that McKee's next move will be to compete in the lightweight Grand Prix, which I am super excited about, that they're having a lightweight Grand Prix now. Their Grand Prix so far have been incredible. The bantamweight, the featherweight, now a lightweight. They also did a light heavyweight, I guess, and the heavyweight. Our top priority has always been to cultivate talent from the ground up, and with AJ, I can proudly say we have witnessed this young man blossom into a bona fide superstar in the Bellator cage, said Scott Coker. It's also our priority to retain top talent, and with AJ entering the prime of his career, it was important to make sure he continued representing the Bellator brand, much like he did recently in Japan, for the foreseeable future. I'm looking forward to AJ's next challenge, an appearance in our 2023 Bellator Lightweight World Grand Prix, which showcases the best 155-pounders in the world. McKee has established himself as one of Bellator's top stars since his debut at the promotion in 2015. Mercenary holds professional records for most consecutive victories, featherweight submissions, and featherweight stoppages. His resume includes victories over the likes of Patricio Pitbull, Darian Caldwell, Georgi Karakian, Pat Curran, John Teixeira, and Justin Lawrence. The 27-year-old body shop representative is coming off a unanimous decision triumph against rising lightweight king Roberto Satoshi de Souza on New Year's Eve, his second victory since moving to 155 pounds. A date for Bellator's lightweight Grand Prix has not yet been announced. I really wanted to see him come to the UFC for selfish reasons, because there's so many great matchups for him at featherweight and lightweight. And I know a lot of people in here disagree with me, but I think that he competes well against Max Holloway, and I would even like to see him against Volkanovski. Kid's an absolute stud. And back to the comment section here. What's up, Isaiah? Says, I don't know why people keep saying this narrative about Volk used to be 220. That means nothing. Islam would submit a 350-pound fatty too. Like the narrative Charles striking would play a factor. Fighters won't look the same worrying about Islam's takedowns. King James says, thanks, Rob. I was unaware of Aldo interest in bare knuckle. Krause says, you mean DC. Islam doesn't get it down. Volks schools him on the feet. I think he is a better striker, but Aldo gloves boxing, not bare knuckle. That's what I thought. And I'm happy that he's doing regular boxing instead of bare knuckle. Great move by Bellator re-signing him. Would have loved to see him in the UFC, but he's young enough to go UFC after this new deal. And I know he said recently that he wants to fight until he's 30. So just 3 more years, and then he wants to take a break, which I think that's going to change. But he said he wants to take a break for a couple of years, come back around 32, 33, and then just fight a couple more years to 35, and then he's out. I'm not sure why he wants to break in there, but I'm sure he has his reasons, probably family planning or something. But he said he definitely is not going to be one of these guys pushing 40 and still fighting. So I like guys that have a plan to get out, and I'm glad he's getting paid. For sure. All right, next up, Aljamain Sterling's injury. Guys, this is really throwing the division for a loop. I don't know if you guys have seen what's going on with this, but there's a possibility. And I think this would be a smart business move for the UFC. Some of you may not agree with the shot, but that they put Sean O'Malley and Henry Cejudo up on this March card because Aljamain was supposed to fight Henry Cejudo in March. It appears that he is not going to be able to make that fight now because of the torn bicep. And Sean O'Malley mentioned, he said, I will step in. He says, I will step in. So this according to MMAnews.com. Sean O'Malley is willing to face Henry Cejudo after a UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling pushed back his return time frame. Sterling was expected to face Cejudo for his next title defense, potentially as soon as UFC 285 in March. However, those plans are on hold after Sterling revealed he's suffering from a bicep injury and likely will need time to recover. The Sterling-Cejudo fight seemed to be a done deal after Cejudo's management revealed that was the case, although the matchup appears to be up in the air after Sterling's admission. To keep the UFC bantamweight title picture moving forward, O'Malley wants to face Cejudo potentially for an interim belt as Sterling heals. Sean O'Malley recently said he would only come back when it was for the title, that he was just going to sit and wait for the winner of Cejudo and Sterling. Now that Sterling is on the shelf, I'm pretty sure he would only take the match against Cejudo if it was for the interim title. But, I mean, that's a big fight. That's a big fight. So to go on, is Aljo Comain fighting Henry or not? I'm confused. If that turns out to be the case, let me beat up Henry, O'Malley tweeted. O'Malley's nickname for Sterling could be perceived as a nod to his recent comments about Sterling's marketability. He claimed that Sterling isn't a pay-per-view standout and said he owed a portion of Sterling's pay-per-view revenue leading up to UFC 280. Well, said he was owed a portion. He did build the fight. I don't know. I don't think he's owed it. That's a champ. But an O'Malley-Cejudo build-up would likely feature a significant amount of trash talk. This is due to their tense history with each other, including a heated verbal altercation backstage at UFC 276. And both guys like to talk, so you know they're not going to shut up. Cejudo has opined that O'Malley is too deep into his own persona and that his desire for big paychecks could hinder his title aspirations. Cejudo hasn't fought since vacating the bantamweight belt following a UFC 249 win against Dominic Cruz. In the meantime, O'Malley has surged into the bantamweight title picture after a win over Peter Yan at UFC 280. If Sterling isn't ready to go for UFC 285, O'Malley seems open to welcoming back Cejudo to the octagon, potentially with a belt on the line. How does that play out, guys? Is Sean O'Malley able to compete with Henry Cejudo, vice versa? And is that a fight everybody's interested in seeing? Would love to have seen AJ in UFC, says Rob. Yeah, I agree. That's a good fight. Put an interim belt on the line for it, says Boxing. I agree with that too. King James says, look like Aljo is going to be a reluctant champion who fights every 365 days. Kind of seems that way. I think everybody thought that in the rematch, Petr Yan was really going to take him out and put him in his place, but then he dominates Petr Yan pretty good in that rematch and, has a great victory over TJ Dillashaw, even though Dillashaw had that shoulder injury and wasn't 100%. Bill says, Cejudo being gone so long, interested to see how much cage rust he would have. That's one of the big questions. Otherwise, I don't like the matchup for Sean O'Malley because I just don't see how he's going to stop his wrestling. It'd have been hard enough for Aljo to stop the wrestling, and as you know, Aljo's a pretty good wrestler himself. And we got a super chat, Firefighter Gypsy. Thank you, sir. It says, love your work. $5 super chat, bringing us up to $15 on the stream. Thanks for the chatter, my man. Appreciate that. Chris says cringe versus cringe. It kind of is, but O'Malley's got a lot of fans. A lot of people really like him, and what he does, he brings over a lot of the casual people. And I think he will continue to bring over a lot of the casuals and a younger fan base. Kind of the same kind of fan base maybe that enjoyed watching Jake Paul fight. But, it's growing the sport. King James says Cejudo will take Third Island Boy down and pound her out quickly. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing Sean O'Malley able to stop Cejudo's takedowns. And Cejudo's really been working on his striking too. I mean, O'Malley's definitely going to outstrike him. But, Henry Cejudo, he's been hanging out with Mike Tyson, training with him for a while. He's also been training with some other strikers, so it's not like he's been sitting on his butt while he's been gone. And he's been kind of planning a comeback for a while. Triple C takes him down, and Sean's fans will cry, says Josiah. O'Malley will win just to see people upset. What's up, bro? Good to see you. O'Malley will lose and still be undefeated. Robert says, definitely terrible fight for Sugar. Cejudo's wrestling is world class. James says, UFC got O'Sally's back, and we've seen plenty of crazy outcomes lately. Josiah says, Aljo would have destroyed Sean also. And Krista says, agreed. I think he would have beaten him. I think Aljo would have beaten him, but, I didn't think Sean had much of a chance against Petr Yan. Obviously, I didn't, because if you guys watched that, I said I would paint my hair pink. Dye my hair pink for a stream, and the next stream out I did. I had pink hair. Yes, it was temporary, but that's how confident I was that Petr Yan was going to beat Sean O'Malley, and O'Malley really surprised me, for sure. All right, so coming out of this press conference back to the Dana thing, it sounds like he is not stepping down. He's not going anywhere. He says his punishment is something that he's going to have to live with for life. Very, very interesting. Like I said, I would not have said to remove him just because his wife hit him first. And like I said, I would have suspended him for 2 pay-per-views and all of the fight nights in between. For one thing, it puts out the message like, hey, this was not okay. We're going to do something. It's not a Ray Rice situation where he walked up to her and cold-cocked her. And I don't think we should compare the two things because Ray Rice is just a horrible human being. But it's also something that I don't condone. Even if a woman slaps a man, I just don't feel like you should hit her back. I just don't. I lost my ass on that O'Malley Yawn fight. I think a lot of people did, man. My grandson has a pink BB gun because of O'Sally. Oh, is your grandson seriously an O'Malley fan? That's hilarious. I didn't think it would even be close. No, I didn't either. Sai says Yan couldn't wrestle if it was a favorable matchup for Sean. The UFC played it perfectly. Aljo's ground control is good, more than adequate to beat Sean. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, next stream we have coming up, let's jump into that. It's actually not the UFC on Saturday. It's actually going to be one on Prime on Friday. So let me bring up that card and we're going to preview that to end the show. Because I think it is an exciting show. All right, let's go through this and some notables. Oh, this is weird. They're doing this live after main card. Boxing used to do that a lot. Kije Wu and Shoko Sato at a catchweight. That's a good fight. But this one caught my eye. I didn't realize he was fighting Gary Tonin. Gary Tonin, the jiu-jitsu expert, taking on Johnny Nunez there at featherweight. Rod Tang returning. We got some kickboxing on this one. I love how one mixes in the kickboxing and Thai matches with their MMA. Rod Tang taking on, I'm just going to say Yibu. I have no idea how to pronounce his first name, and I don't want to butcher it. Ang Lao Sung coming off, I believe, his first victory, or first defeat, excuse me. First defeat in ONE FC anyways, taking on a catchweight bout against Gilberto Galvo. That should be a good one. Stamp Fairtex, always fun to watch. She's entertaining, taking on Anissa Mexen at atomweight in a mixed rules bout. I'm not sure why they're saying mixed rules and not MMA. So if anybody else knows anything about that, is it like a kickboxing one round, MMA the next kind of thing? Which is also something that, Nate and Jake could do. I would rather see them do that, to be honest, rather than do the boxing and then the MMA match. But, I mean, who knows? Mikey Musasi, me and Robert's one of our favorite fighters, taking on Bayaduran of Mongolia, defending his flyweight grappling world championship. Some kickboxing. Superlek taking on Daniel Puertas of Spain on a flyweight kickboxing world championship, and then another kickboxing championship. Actually, the main event, a featherweight kickboxing world championship match. Superbon taking on Chingiz Olivas of Belarus. So Thailand against Belarus. On that one, this card will be this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. They're usually about 2 to 3 hours, the main card, similar to like what a UFC is, if you guys haven't seen it. We've done a few of these since they've went over on Amazon Prime, and they're at a time that, works out for us better. Another one on Prime Video. Let's go. No, Cejudo and Aljo. Well, Cejudo and Aljo, they were saying was official, but now that Aljo is out, Sean could jump in there. Sean O'Malley, at least he's volunteered it. Jan couldn't wrestle. It was a favorable matchup, says Josiah for Sean. The UFC played it perfectly. Aljo's ground control was good, more than adequate to beat Sean. I agree. What's up, bro? People dislike the cold of personality around Sean more than they dislike his actual fighting. I agree with that too, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Just want to make that statement to clear things up. No, very well said. No, he painted BB gun because of a bet he made with us. If I was your grandson, I'd be pissed too. I got it, Robert. That's funny. Gary Tonin match, is that MMA or BJJ? I believe it's MMA. It doesn't say. It just says featherweight. So I'm assuming that is an MMA match, because the ones that aren't MMA, it says differently. Which really has me intrigued about this atomweight mix rules between Stamp Fairtex and Anissa Mexen, because if that was an MMA match, all the other MMA matches, it just doesn't say anything else. So that's got to be something different. I'm interested to see what that is. I wasn't about to paint my 45, so I committed sacrilege on my son's BB gun to maintain my word. Oh, that's funny. That's a good card, boxing. When is this one card? Is it going to be on Prime? Yes, on Prime. Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. your time for the main card, Robert. Thank you. What's up, Raul Duke with the super chat, $10 super chat. Thank you, my friend. Bringing us up to $25 on the day for this impromptu stream. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the cheddar. Yes, cheers. All right, so to go over real quickly, recap what we went over here. First, we'll talk about our breaking news brought to us by the community from Billy. Dana White had a press conference today talking about he's not stepping down from the UFC, but his punishment is this will be something he'll have to live with for life, yada, yada, yada. Many people have been calling for Dana White to resign or be replaced, including the California Legislature's Women's Caucus. Then we moved in, we started out with a tribute to Victoria Lee, dead at 18, too soon. Again, condolences to her family. Then we went into the Brazilian ex-president living in Jose Aldo's home, Jairo Bolsonaro, living in one of Jose's homes in Florida. He has had to flee the country after his supporters invaded the Congressional Building, the Supreme Court, and the Planalto Presidential Palace. That, according to televised reports from Brazil, a lot of fighters love Bolsonaro, including Darren Till, Paulo Costa, Royce Gracie, Anderson Silva, Vanderlei Silva, Rafael dos Anjos, Ronaldo Sosa, and of course Jose himself, which it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this UFC card in just 10 days. Then we went through the Kelvin Gastelum fight. We talked about the fact that he has staph on his face, lost some teeth, just in horrible condition there. Sean Strickland, of course, replacing him against Imanov. Also on this card, Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov was the original co-main event. That's going to be rescheduled for a later date. The fact that WWE is looking like they're possibly have sold to the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. That's a crazy thing, which may or may not have happened, but they're definitely up for sale. We talked about what Jake Paul signing to the PFL means and their pay-per-view system. We talked about Bellator being for sale. We really didn't come up with any ideas for buyers. I really couldn't come up with much of anything good either. But definitely looking forward to Bellator's February 4th show with Fedor Emelianenko versus Ryan Bader. We quickly went over Diego Sanchez making his debut in BKFC. That's Friday, February 17th. That's going to be in that weekend between the Super Bowl and just a week before the Super Bowl and a week after the NFL Conference Championships. We talked about Francis Ngannou possibly going to the PFL, and Francis's mother being seen wearing a PFL shirt while he was at dinner with her. We talked about Bellator re-signing one of the best featherweights in the world, AJ McKee, multi-fight deal, and the fact that he's going to be fighting in the upcoming Bellator lightweight Grand Prix. Love those Grand Prix. We pretty much ended it with Sean O'Malley stepping in, saying that he will fight Henry Cejudo for the interim strap if the UFC is on board. And if Aljo is unable to fight, Aljo has said he will not be ready for the proposed fight at UFC 285 in March. Be interesting to see what happens there. Ross says it's a good Wednesday. Cheers all. Going to talk about next UFC card this weekend. Oh, yes. Yes, let's go over that. And Billy says Seahawks playoffs, because yes, we're going to be doing both of those. Can't wait to see next stream with the new equipment and lighting and microphones. Going to be a new level of Fights with Friends. Says Billy, yes, thank you again for that, my man. What's up, Rudy? Says, y'all forget that Dana's contract just goes until 2/26. There will be no renewal. Well, that's a good point, Rudy. I didn't think about that. And I think Daniel Cormier is definitely the odds-on favorite to replace him. We'll see what happens, though. Thanks, Mike. Didn't know you did a midweek stream. I may drop in more often. I think we're going to be doing more of them. I did this one because of so much news going on and stuff. But, yeah, I think we're going to make this a regular thing. I got a Super Bowl ready for tonight. I like it. I think I know what kind of Super Bowl you're talking about. Seahawks playoff game. Yes, we're going to be doing that, though, Billy. So, Saturday, the Seahawks made it to the playoffs. I'm not missing that, guys. I'm sorry. So, but we're going to go ahead and do a live reaction stream for it. Whoever's interested in that, we'll be keeping track of and popping into the prelims on UFC, and then that game should be ending about the time that the UFC main card starts, and then we'll head into the UFC main card. Geno Smith must be the most improved player of the NFL season. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't win it. I agree. King James, Mike, fill us in on how you've been able to come on during the week and between cards. Hope you're able to continue. I've been off earlier. I got my truck back, which had been in the shop for a long time. The transmission, I hired a new employee that's going to kind of fill in for me here and there. I've been training. He's going to take my weekends. I definitely won't be working Sundays anymore, and probably a short Saturday. So that'll be good. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And yes, I'm planning to continue. Robert says Eagles going to win the Super Bowl. Well, as much as I'm happy that the Seahawks are in the playoffs, and I definitely didn't expect Detroit to beat Green Bay, I don't expect the Seahawks to beat the 49ers. I have faith they could do it. It could happen. But I'm also a realist. I realize that the 49ers could definitely stomp them. They're highly favored. The Eagles definitely have a great chance at the Super Bowl, number one seed in the conference. But I'm going to have fun watching them. I've had fun watching them up to this point. It's selling me a lot more chips and tortillas, too, since they made it into the playoffs and had some games worth watching. We definitely didn't think we would be in the playoffs this year. Kind of seemed like a rebuilding year. Billy, a little caveat. Hey, I was happy to see Russell Wilson have a great game, 3 touchdowns, in your guys' last Bronco win of the season, even though I know you didn't make the playoffs. I hope he does really well for you. I really like Russell Wilson. I'm still a fan. Seahawks have a better chance than the Dolphins do against the Bills. Robert says, agree, Billy. Yeah, we'll see. Cowboys are winning it all. So it's just, oh, by the way, congratulations are in order. Our fantasy football season has ended. It came down to the last couple of weeks. My cousin, Evan Adams, if you guys seen, or excuse me, nephew, Evan Adams, if you guys that are in the fantasy football league seen that name, that's my nephew, who's a senior in high school now. He was leading mostly until the end. Billy Hughes beat the pants off him in the last couple of weeks. So congratulations, Billy, on winning this year's Fights with Friends fantasy football season. I definitely look forward to next year and hope that a lot more people join. Eagles are favored and their QB is leading MVP point. Howard says, agree, King. Congrats to me on winning again. Yes, Billy wins again. He's going to think about that when he sits next to his trivia trophy. I know that's by his bedside. I know he sleeps with his trivia trophy. Denver fans in here. Denver is so bad to watch. God help the poor Denver fans. Yeah, Billy's a Denver fan. How about your daughter, Mike? Finished 5th. She won a ton of games at the end. Which is funny. I think she ended up with the same record as me. Billy, she did not touch her fantasy football team the entire year. So she must have ended up with a good team. And I didn't help her. I didn't even have her log on. So whatever players were on bye or injured or out, it just played through. She only signed up to help us have enough teams, and then yeah, she never did anything with it. If I was a less honest guy, I would have asked her for a password and traded for a few of her good players, but that wouldn't make it fun to win if you had to cheat. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. I can't wait to see you guys on Friday for ONE FC. Then Saturday, we're going to do NFL playoffs, UFC after that. If you guys want to do some more playoffs like on Sunday, I don't know when the Eagles are playing. Let me figure out. Hey, Siri, when do the Philadelphia Eagles play next?
I don't have schedule information for the next Eagles game.
Oh, they're on a bye week, duh. Okay, so we don't know yet. Denver did it themselves by paying $250 million for an average quarterback and no money to improve. I mean, I don't know. Russell did pretty good for us. He's coming around for Denver. I hope he does well for them. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses next.